Welcome back, Visions fans. Boy, did we get a surprise this morning with the Lunar New Year unit that's going to be released this week. More the merrier. Brand new to the game, and absolutely, my opinion right off the gate, is a meta shifter. I'm going to provide a lot of good points that I don't think I'm exaggerating here, that hopefully this makes sense to everybody as well. So I'm going to go through the character, the new vision card, what I think it's going to mean for the implication of the balance of the game, and we'll wrap things up there. So the overview right now is a brand new wind unit. I know it feels like we've been getting a lot of them. That's because we have. We've gotten a ton of new wind units lately. Cost 90, which is cool. She's super powerful. Brand new apothecary job as the main job for her. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be one of those jobs that's not the full AP like a mage starts out with. More like Elena, where you kind of get that 50% starting AP. So there will be some AP management to happen there, but nothing too daunting. She does use gloves as a weapon, and there is a new type of glove coming this week that's going to give her wind attack and magic attack up. She does have access to poison, which can defeat enemies without activating their courage, so that's kind of a hard counter to courage in its own way. She does have access to the sleep status effect as well, silence also, and then she can give herself regen. That HP auto restore also increases her odds to inflict sleep on the enemy. Sub job, she's getting Rune Knight and Time Mage, and then finally her TMR is an AoE to party shell and crit evade up. This we're gonna hold on. I can't even put this into words right now. So going through some of the abilities high level here, this is her limit burst, Festival of the Flying Fortunes, where essentially it deals large damage to targets on that AOE with a medium amount of range, height 1, area height 1, and then the chance of inflicting silence, AOE imperil on hit as well. So this is a massive counter right off the gate for a lot of mages, where silence will prevent them from doing any kind of actions at all. And the AoE resistance down is obviously really powerful as well when you consider a lot of vision cards right now are currently buffing AoE resistance. So that kind of negates those vision card buffs. The second one, Divine Toxicology, is the poison-based one, where kind of, again, that longer range spell where it'll give someone poison, but it's also a very strong, from what it appears, imperil of defense and spirit, while also decreasing healing power, which is super great to kind of put all of that in one. Again, range height and area height of 1. This next one here, Life of Longevity, is the self buff that will give her re-raise on herself, and will also give her a buff while the re-raise status effect is on her. So it'll give her a buff to her magic, to her own healing power, and to her accuracy rate while that's there. Soul Sedition is another one that's kind of shown in the video but not on the card, where essentially it's an attack that will sleep the unit. But getting into her vision card, this is another new wind vision card, where for the party it's going to give Man-Eater upon magic attack up. That's obviously an offensive buff for her, but also for someone like Leela. HP up as well for the party, and then earth attack resistance up. So this is going to absolutely smoke the balance between wind and earth further than it already was. For the unit that's possessing it, it's going to give them accuracy up, and then for more in particular, AP cost rate down, which is why I think she's going to be one of those units like Elena that starts off with 50% AP rather than the mage full AP. So this is going to help her manage her skills a lot easier. But we talk about being a meta shifter, and I speak about this from the perspective of the top 20 in the game, where light is the prevalent meta in the game. It is a hard light counter for a variety of reasons that I think this is absolutely going to shift a bunch of things. Number one, Elena and Jaden both run at 97 faith, so they're susceptible to all of these status effects. Now, obviously, they have resistances to a couple of them, but by and large, it's one way to counter them, and we're going to get into more in particular. The silence in particular, to me, is a absolute very hard counter to both, where neither of them can take any actions whatsoever when they're silenced. Really important thing to stopping what they do best, obviously. And then the next one here, the poison also hard counters the Engelbert and Elena courage, so that if you proc that poison on them at the end of their turn, if it does happen to poison them, it doesn't actually, because it's a self-damaging effect and not an enemy doing the damage, the courage won't proc at all. They'll just die, which is absolutely imperative to stopping part of what that makes the meta strong. The accuracy up is also really important to countering Elena, where more not only gets it on the vision card, but also get accuracy up on one of her buffs. And the Rune Knight sub job, also, we don't know what her passives are going to be, but Rune Knight typically gets Sharp Mind as a passive, which is an increase of 20% accuracy. So lots of reasons why she might be able to hit those more evasive units overall. The magic attacks, too, will absolutely beat the crap out of Engelbert, particularly with Halloween Leela, if you have her next to her. This is, in my opinion, one of the things that makes the light cast so strong. It's not necessarily Elena or Jaden, don't get me wrong, they're both amazing units. It's truly Engelbert, that if it takes you 5 to 6 hits to kill him and he's proccing that courage, your team is very likely going to get smoked by Elena Jaden before you can actually get rid of Engelbert. It's one of the reasons why you've seen lightning teams become so strong currently, where Ibarra does an absolutely great job of just doing massive amounts of damage to Engelbert. And in this instance, when you have more and potentially Leela as well with the magic attack modifiers up and potentially countering his courage by proccing the poison, Engelbert, if you get rid of him much quicker, Elena and Jaden are going to fall in like 1 to 2 hits, no problem, particularly if you're proccing these status effects on them. So the magic type is really important to getting rid of Engelbert right out of the gate. Her TMR is also a massive buff for countering light, where it is an AoE shell ability to those around them, but also the crit evade up. Very, very important to mitigating the amount of damage that they do to you, where a lot of what the light vision cards do, dexterity up on the Jaden card will increase their crit rate, and the crit damage on the Elena card will be essentially nullified to some degree, because crit evasion means they won't get critically hit, which means it's going to affect how long you survive, which is absolutely fantastic. And secondly, her limit break counters the AoE resistance of the Jaden card, so if you can imperil someone's AoE resistance, it basically can counter out that vision card. So there's a lot going on here where her ability and her kit will detract from the strength of the vision cards that the light units are seeing overall. Divine Toxicology is also an amazing imperil against Engelbert, where when you're talking about damage, sure, a ton of magic attacks are going to absolutely smoke him, but when you can also apply the defense and spirit break, it's just going to do it that much faster, and also be a DPS increase for your physical attackers. Like if you're using Joom, she's going to hit him harder innately. Now, not as much as the magic attacks, but every little bit counts. And then finally, the Time Age subjob. I don't know how this would actually affect the turn order of things in terms of skill prioritization, but if this Time Age subjob comes with Quicken, number one, that's almost broken, but even just haste by itself is really important. That if you can haste a unit or two, you will get their agility up in the levels of the light units, where they are very high agility units, and Time Age can maybe buff your team to be in that same range for the overall turn order. What that means for the overall, game balance and meta, though, there's a couple other changes. So the meta implications, it's a light meta shift, number one, where you will hard counter them to some degree, and two, demolishes any potential of Earth, where I don't see a situation where Earth would ever beat Wind with her releasing with this vision card. It's also an indirect dark buff, where not only A, when you're reducing the odds of seeing light, but B, when you put her in the game, Dwayne and Golbez have re-raised a spell in them. So if you're seeing a ton of more, the merrier. Well, Dark might get an indirect buff because both Dwayne and Golbez can remove that re-raise from her, which will also be a nerf to her stats. Because if you recall, when she buffs herself with re-raise, she gets some stat buffs as well. Those will be gone when you dispel the re-raise. And then finally, an indirect fire buff. We don't know the exact degree to this, but Cetia, who's coming relatively soon, it's one of the new crystal units, also has re-raise dispels. So when you're talking about ways to kill more a lot quicker and to remove those buffs, Cetia also has that option. So might see some things for fire, where typically fire has been almost unusable right now because they simply just can't beat the light units. They're just not accurate enough, they're not fast enough, they're just not tanky. So overall, fire is kind of suffering. But if the wind meta comes here, it kind of does away with the light, fire actually might get an indirect buff here as well. So there's some definite balance implications here with the potential meta shift. Overall, I hate it. My Vizior stash is absolutely gone. On the other hand, this is actually a really good move in terms of the balance changes in the game. Light is definitely overpowered with very little in the way to really counter some of what they do best. And when you talk about, the future of Light, where there's going to be Locke and Violet, who also have re-raise on them, this is also going to be a great character to help, mitigate what the future Light potential is as well. So I'm very happy they're adding this to the game, but my goodness, she's going to be limited. I'm sure of it, that the Vizior stash overall is not a good thing for our wallets and our saving in terms of game management. But thumbs up to Gumi. This is a creative character, creative design. I'm glad it's here, but we'll see what actually comes to fruition. But thanks for watching. Hopefully this is informative. If you're pulling, good luck, and can't wait to tinker more with her and see how she actually shakes things up.